Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm your host, Nicholas Canby. This is episode 45, the first episode of 2023. And today's guest features two of my favorite strongman mentors and great friends. First up, hailing from New Jersey, pro strongman and 2021 World's Strongest Master, 105 kilo, the owner of the Strong Box, Johnny Wasiczko. And then next up, hailing from Massachusetts, pro strongman and two-time America's Strongest Master, owner of Titan Barbell, Eric, the Cookie Monster, Dawson. Happy New Year, guys. Welcome to the show.
Happy New Year, brother.
How you guys feeling?
Good.
Yeah, I feel good.
Ready to make it a very strong year?
Stronger the better.
Like it. But of course we have many questions for today. A lot of fan questions came in, but I want to kind of start with you guys' experience at the Olympia. So doing America's Strongest Masters alongside with America's Strongest Man and Women. But yeah, tell us about your recent experience and how the contest went. So who wants to take it out first?
Johnny.
Eric, go ahead.
Sure, I'll go first. It was a great experience. Anytime I can compete and still be able to compete, I enjoy it. So overall, it was a good contest. I had no real, I guess, issues overall. It was nice to be back in Vegas. I don't know. I mean, not that Orlando was bad, and I think it might be going back there. I don't know what the word is, but it was nice being back in Vegas just because it's nice to be in a big city and having the convenience of being in the actual hotel, the host hotel. So at the Venetian, it was, I don't know, from the competitive side of things, it was nice to just be able to take the bag from the room and just walk down 5 minutes and you're on the competition floor. That helped out a lot. I mean, I know you guys, it sucks when you have to all right, Uber here, walk here. It's a hour trip just to get to the venue, especially if it's a multi-day contest. So the logistics of it were nice.
No, excellent. Now, how did you feel training leading up to the contest and of course your performance?
I felt solid. I mean, I had this past summer I had kind of tweaked my back a little bit. So coming off of that, I didn't get a chance to do OSG that I'd wanted to do before this. But I'm happy I chose to not do that. I felt better coming off of that, and I felt I had enough time to properly prep for this contest. So I felt good. Every week I felt better and better coming into the contest. Sometimes you know how preps go where you're feeling kind of worse and worse. You're like, all right, let's just kind of hold on for the last week or two. This one I actually felt like every week I was progressing in terms of just general health and how I was feeling, getting better each week going into it. So it felt good going into it. And then in terms of how the contest went, there were a couple of guys that were really pushing each other. Myself, Jesse, oh my God, I'm butchering his last name or forgetting his last name. He's a Wisconsin guy, actually. I was in second place going in day two to him. He really pushed me on all the moving events, which are usually my strengths, especially when it comes to some of the bigger guys and some of the masters classes. So he had beat me on power stairs. He and Randy Cole had actually beat me on the medley, and then I won sandbag over shoulder, so that helped. And then going into day two, Viking press, I'd won that actually pretty handily. And then the last event, the last man standing Hummer tire deadlift, I'd done well enough. I knew at that point I was kind of calculating on the fly how many points I needed and how many guys I needed to beat on that. So once I pulled the 705, I knew I pretty much had the overall victory locked up. So I pretty much just shut it down mentally at that point. And because didn't want to risk anything. I wasn't going to do anything, but potentially hurt myself at that point anyway. So
it was a tight win, but a win's a win.
Yeah,
Excellent,
definitely.
excellent. Johnny, how was your show?
It was good. I signed up pretty late. I didn't know I was going to do it. I kind of hurt my back pretty bad at Worlds earlier in October. So but I looked at the events. The events looked really fun. Hats off to Dion and the crew for making the events so crowd friendly. Big events, so it brings the crowd. Fun events, so it brings the athletes. Being in Vegas is awesome. I think a lot of people didn't expect it to be so cold, though. It was like freezing at night, but during the day it was all right because the sun was out. But like Eric said, it's so awesome to just be in the host hotel where you just walk on down, no Ubers, no bad timing accidents. The breakfast, everything was right there. You didn't have to leave the hotel, and it was just a little walk downstairs and you were in the convention center. So that was really, really great about competing. Then the contest itself it ran really good. It was two at a time usually, and it just ran really smooth. 2 day split. So, worked out pretty well.
No, excellent. But yeah, it sounded like a great show. And unfortunately, I wish of course the 105 kilo show was also over there so I could hang out with you guys in Vegas, but maybe for another time. But I think we'll be able to hang out very soon. But yeah, going through kind of all the questions. So of course, great kind of catching up in terms of the recent competition. So one thing I want to kind of cover, and you guys both have your kind of different kind of approaches to this, but you guys are both very exceptional with the Atlas stones. So this is kind of like a few parter. So talk us through your Atlas stone journey and what it takes to be a great stone learner, but also give some wisdom to the listeners and how they can improve their own stone training. So if you want to take this, Eric, or you want to start this, Johnny?
Johnny, go ahead and start this one.
All right. Stones are stones, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people, when they start strongman, that's what they see. They see the stones, so they want to get after it. It's a little weird at first because there's nothing else like it that you grew up with in the gym. It's not like anything that has a handle or especially something with a grip that makes it easier. So you just got to go in deep, and just pray to God that you could do it. But, that's once you do it once, it kind of gets a little easier. But that first time, I feel like it really stuns a lot of people. But for me, I approach a stone just like anything that you're going to pick up that's on object. So now with strongman, you have the sandbags, you have the kegs. They're all approached kind of similar. I like to straddle the stone, reach down. I like to get the biggest grip I can around it. So I kind of like stick my fingers as deep as possible. Sometimes I'll even have to roll it on one hand and really push the other hand underneath it. Try to get as much surface area on the stone as possible. Just your fingertips, your palms, your wrists, your forearms, even in the lower biceps if you can, to the upper biceps. Wrap it around, deadlift it up, place it on your lap, regrip, take your feet in closer, get into a good stance, squeeze, pick it up, roll it up your body until it, gets to where it has to be. I tell people always just roll it right into your chin as high as possible, triple extension. And there you go. Easy peasy.
Now for training, if you had like a stone series, what would you recommend like leading up to a show?
I like doing a lot of reps with one stone moving on. So like if let's just say it's a stone series up to 400 pounds, you'd be able to do whatever that stone is if you haven't done stones in a while, it's great. So they take that, just say the first stone is 250. If the series is 5 stones or 6 stones, do it 5 or 6 times. That'll be, once you could do that pretty handily, go to the next one, and do the 275 5 to 6 times. Once you could do that with no problem, you go to the 320, you do 5 or 6 times. And I like to go all the way until I could do that last stone 5 to 6 times. That's how I do it. And then it gives me the confidence to just go and run.
Excellent. That's a great answer. How about yourself, Eric? What are your tips and how did you become a great stone learner in today's age of strongman?
I was actually born into it, kind of. I grew up in a rock quarry, working at a rock quarry and sand and gravel business. So
that's cheating.
Okay. From the time I was a kid, like I've just picked up stones. I remember working like there were stone crushers. Sometimes without going into details, like a stone would get lodged in there and we'd have to shut the machine down and have to lift it out. I remember even as like a 13 or 14-year-old kid, I would go down in there and pick it up and have to pick up like a 250, 300-pound stone out of there. And these are natural stones. These aren't right. Like there's no tacky. It's just figuring out how to pick up a regular natural stone and pick it up. So like I said, that came natural to me. The first time I ever tried Atlas stones, I'd loaded, I think it was a 3 or 330 just without really thinking about it. Right. Because part of that was just, I just done it for so much, right? I think we all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? Like I'm generally a pretty good stone loader and pretty good with like odd object stuff. I'm generally not as good at deadlifter, right? We all have stuff that just naturally, the first time you do it, like, oh shit, that's like, I'm pretty good at this, right? As far as
All
training,
that year,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
the years of child endangerment, man, makes you a great loader.
Yeah, I actually got 2 hernias as a kid trying to lift stuff up that was too heavy. When I was
Rub some
16
dirt on
years
it.
old, yeah. But as far as training goes, I think kind of taking a multifaceted approach, right, in terms of what I would do for a stone run. Making sure you're training height, right, explosiveness, because depending on the series or the contest, that first platform, especially for shorter athletes, maybe actually the biggest struggle, right? Like I've competed against a few guys where they could actually get the last stone, but they really struggle with the first stone or two because of that height. So if you're only training to a 48-inch platform, for example, and you're not used to that 54, 56 or higher, that's going to be a big struggle. So learning how to be explosive out of your lap is going to be a really big, the first step, honestly, because it is the first step for a lot of series. So I've loaded, I don't do this as much now, although I will still load. I've loaded up to like 72, 77-inch platforms to really be explosive with it, with lighter stones. Practicing transitions, right? So everybody can do one and then stop, do the other. How are you moving transition stone to stone? Being mindful of your body position in relationship to the stones. That's another thing that I think people can work on practicing, right? Sometimes people, when they have a stone series, they just go berserk. They're like, "Arr!" And they're frantic, right? And in that franticness, they're not in the right position. They're not in the proper position. So sometimes in training, I'll have a run or I'll have a day where I actually don't care about speed. I care about how can I perfect this run and what I'm doing. And generally what ends up happening is it's a pretty damn fast run, right? Versus if you're thinking, all right, I'm just going to go berserk on this thing. And now the third stone in, you're fumbling with because you're trying to be faster than you actually should be. So I think being mindful of your position in relationship to the stones in a series is extremely important, especially for a lot of novice lifters. And then lastly, I mean, we can keep going, but the last thing I would say is training the last stone in a fatigued state. So whether you're going to do a whole series or whether you just say, all right, the last stone is 350. Well, you can get 350, but can you get 350 if you're fatigued, right? That's a very different thing. Can you do it after doing 4 previous stones? So whether that's actually doing a full stone series, or maybe even just doing, like I said, maybe the last stone is a 350. Maybe you're doing 250 for 4 reps or a 270 for 2 reps and a 300 for a rep, then on to that 350. It doesn't have to be a true 5 stone where every stone is different, but can you do it in a fatigued state? Or even doing like imam reps, or like doing 2 reps and then resting and coming back and, like I said, in a fatigue state, trying to hit that 350 again when you're fatigued. Because that's really a lot of times in contest, you both know, right? It's the end of the contest almost every single time, either the end of a long day or the end of a long, 2 days or even 3 days. So in a fatigue state, can you hit that? And if you're not training that, it can throw a lot of people off in the contest itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%, especially with the tacky issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people with fresh tacky, they can pick up a heavy stone, but when it's the 4th, 5th stone and you're not re-tackying, can you get that stone? So that's another thing that you could add into that training. I mean, especially with the imams, like you said, like not reapply the tacky. Whatever you start with on the outsides of your hands, on the inside, whatever it is, when you get to that 5th, 6th, 7th rep, you have to know that your tacky is there.
Excellent. Now, what do you guys suggest for one motion stones? Like, is it, for instance, you see maybe right now, like the Giants live circuit, that in their castle stones, they're up to about 400 or 420, but they're one motioning their first 4 stones and then they lap it and load the last stones. And then let's just say on OSG, most weight classes are vipering. The 105 kilos don't exactly not vipering, one motioning the stones, but other classes are one motioning. When should you one motion? When should you not? And any tips on one motioning the stones?
I feel like if if you're faster with the one motion. But if you're not faster, then you lap it and then load it. Like, I'm very fast with the lap and load. I see a lot of people one motion it, but they're taking a lot of time, like 150% more time than a regular load. So you need to know exactly what the weight is on and where your speed is, because you can, up to 300 pounds, you can one time faster than lap and load. But once you get to a certain number, you need to know which one is faster. And the only way to find out is to really train it.
Yeah, I would mimic that exactly. I had just had this conversation. I forget, maybe it was with you, Nick, maybe it was somebody else, where when it comes to, all right, when should you stop one motioning or transitioning from a one motion to that, is you mentally, you have to guarantee yourself you're going to get it, right? If I'm ever even slightly worried that I'm not going to get it with the one motion, I'm not one motioning it. And I've done pretty well with that, right? But even contests now where I'm like, I don't feel 100% confident, that I'm going to go with a lap and a quick reload, right? So like, I usually use 3 techniques. One, I'll do a one motion for the lighter stones, a lap and quick load, where I keep my hip position a little higher. Again, because I'm taller, I can benefit from that. I don't have to go super low. And then if I'm really fatigued, or if it's a big ass stone, right, like especially diameter wise, where you really got to pull it in, drop your ass down, get around the thing. And I think having all 3 of those disposal is going to be important. You can't just say, well, I'm just going to do all that last one, because then it's going to be slow. But you're not going to, generally, unless the stones are really light for you, you're not going to one motion every single one, right? So having that and being able to switch is going to be important.
A lot of great tips there, of course. Thank you, guys. So let's we'll move on to kind of like the next question. So Johnny, so you've had Eric and I both as teammates in strongman team contests. The Ukraine show, was that in 2016 you guys did?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and of course, Johnny and I went to Hungary in 2019. Who was the better teammate and why?
Sean DeMarinis. I mean, I can't answer that question. You both were great teammates, man. Now, when we did it, we both had to make 105. When me and Eric did it, obviously he didn't make 105. So it was a heavyweight and 105 contest. So I had to make weight, and he was the open category. So it was a little different, you know. When me and Eric went to the Ukraine, we had to obviously, the same as when me and you competed, we took our best events, you know what I mean? And we said, okay, yoke, farmers, you got the stone, I got the stone, whatever. We switched it up. With Eric, it wasn't just the best events either. It was the heavy and what we could handle. Like, obviously, he can handle a lot more weight than I can. So sometimes he did some events that he wasn't 100% better than me at, but with that weight he was, and same difference. So, but both, you know, Ukraine was a great time, and Hungary was a great time, and you guys are, you know, real good people. So, like, it wouldn't matter who it was, you or Eric. You know what I mean?
But I did want to mention, I would say that Hungary show, especially being the teammates, I would never really thought I was going to learn that much. So coming into that contest, I came in, we landed in Hungary. So we met Johnny at the airport because we took two different flights, 3-hour trip to Lenti where the contest was. And I show up on the scale, I'm 13 pounds heavy with 24 hours before the weigh-in. So Johnny,
so fat.
So Johnny gave me everything. He really helped me in terms of, I think it was the first time trying the Benecourt plus, the Carnine plus. Yeah,
Carnine
so
plus.
really kind of sweating out. So we did that both times. But also you still should be eating. You need to have a breakfast. You need to do all this. So, but even during the contest too was the first time. Like you were like right after the first event, you were forcing me to, of course, eat gummy bears and gummy worms, keep rehydrating, because we had, of course, we exploded the first day, and then we had a little mishap on the last event. But throughout, I learned, of course, a lot. But even figuring out just how to compete with someone else. But Eric, what did you learn a lot when you were teammates with Johnny back in 2016?
Yeah, we had to learn on the fly. I would say the biggest thing we had to learn truly on the fly was that 2-person log, especially given our difference in height.
Just the height
right?
difference.
Like,
yeah.
And that's one thing, who was it, Konstantin Janassia and his partner, I believe, that you could tell that they had practiced that once or twice, because there was also a huge height discrepancy. But I think what they did, if I'm not mistaken, was like the shorter guy locked out, and then Constantine basically just waited, and then he basically just kind of did that, right, where we tried to both simultaneously press, and that kind of we literally had to figure that out throughout the middle of the event, right? Because we didn't really get, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have a 2-person warm-up log, did they?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So the first time we had done that was together on the platform live, right? So
they did it on purpose, damn it.
That contest was the first time you guys saw Novikov in action, right?
Yeah.
And he must have been like 19, 20.
Yeah, and I don't know about Johnny, but like, I'm not saying I knew he was going to be world's strongest man, but I remember walking away from that being like, holy shit, that guy is good. Like, that kid is going to be good, right?
Now,
Yeah,
did that team did his team end up being you guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Did they?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they did.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
maybe,
because
am I confusing that with another Ukrainian team then?
Yeah. His teammate tore his pec on the sandbag carry right in the beginning, and that's what really made me know and remember Novikov, because he had to do both events the whole time. So he like did the yoke, and then I think the competitor did the sandbag, fell with the sandbag, so he had to come run, do the sandbag, and then every time he was just competing by himself. So every time we had to tag in and out, he had to do both. And I was like, this kid is a workhorse and a half, man.
Yeah.
No, that's nuts. It must have been, of course, a spectacle to see. But I remember watching him the first time I competed against him in 2018, Arnold Amateur, and he moved very differently than any other athlete. So of course, moving on in terms of questions. So this is a few parter, and of course, I have a lot of follow up questions on this. But both you guys are both in your double digits in terms of competing. Eric, you started in 2009, is that right?
Yeah, 8 or 9. I can't remember now.
And then Johnny, you started before Christ, correct?
Yeah, a little bit before Christ.
2008.
I showed up at one contest in 2007. And then like did 3 events and left. And then a year later, I showed up kind of like the same people were throwing the contest. And they were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just here. They're like, and I entered, and I did actually pretty good in 2008 and did like 4 more contests because I started training with a crew. And then 2009 was like my breakout year.
All right. Now, how soon did you guys realize you had a future in the sport of strongman? So like how soon into training and competing did you guys have a feel that this could be, I can make a future of this, make a career out of this?
Well, like I said, I just showed up just because there was a fire truck out of Billboard. So I went to go there. I had no experience. I didn't even know anyone that did strongman. I just watched it on TV. So that was like a bust. After 3 events, I think 4 events, the Atlas Stones were next. I'm like, I'm not putting that sticky stuff on. I just left. So then a year later, I see another billboard at a gym, little poster at a gym. So I show up, and actually I did pretty well. I finished all the events. I won the truck pull, things like that. So the crew that was throwing the show, they said to come to the gym every week, and they have a strongman training. So I started training with them, and I think I did the next show I did. I won as a lightweight, 231er, and then I gained like 10, 15 pounds and did battle at the barn, and won that contest as a heavyweight. So I'm like, hey, maybe I got something to give to this sport. And then I think I did 17 shows in 2009 and ended up getting 3rd place at nationals in the 265 division.
So that's when you knew it. You definitely had a future. But 17 shows in 1 year. That's quite a bit of shows.
Well, I can't sing. I can't play piano. So I said, might as well pick up some fucking boulders.
How about yourself, Eric? What did that look like in the beginning? When did you realize your potential and you had a future in the sport?
Yeah, I would say it took maybe a little bit. I got into it just to honestly have fun. Like I've said that it's a little cliche. I'm still having fun. I never really got into it to like turn pro or do this or have monster aspirations. I just liked the sport from the beginning. I'd wanted to do it. Honestly, ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with it. And then I was talking with somebody. I was working at a Bally Total Fitness of all places, and one of my coworkers at the time had told me about TPS back when it was several locations ago. It said, "Hey, there's a gym over there that teaches people how to do this stuff if you want to do that." So I walked in one day and the rest is history, as they say. I hired a coach to teach me how to do it, and I told him, I said, listen, I don't care how long it takes. I'll work and keep working. I had a strength training background, playing college football and then strength training after that, but no real experience with the actual implements. And after about 3 months, he said, you're ready to do a contest. So I signed up for an open heavyweight contest. And I forget, I got like maybe fifth.
Do you remember what show was that? Somewhere in Massachusetts?
Yeah, that was the TPS, the Massachusetts State Championships, the one that was actually at Everett High School on the track.
Oh, cool.
And then after that, I was like, all right, this is awesome. And I definitely need to get a lot better at this, right? Like there's a lot of ways I can improve. So I actually just took an entire year. I didn't compete again. I kind of took the opposite approach of Johnny, actually. I took the opposite approach. I just said, all right, for a year, I'm not doing anything, and I'll train and I'll sign up for that contest again. So for that next like 9 months, I just kept working on my base of strength, kind of getting myself familiar with various implements. And then once they had announced the contest, I signed up, and I won the next year, the heavyweight, in 2000. I think that would have been 10. Yeah.
And then I remember you winning in 2012. Did you win 2011 too?
I didn't, because I didn't do it for some reason. I forget why I didn't do 2011. I don't know why. And then let's see, when did I feel like it was actually something that I could do? It actually took me a while. I would say I did nationals. My first national, I took like 20th or 21st. And then when I came back for the second time, I did nationals. And then at that same Arnold, the Arnold following that year, I had done the same thing, maybe like 20th, 21st or something like that. And I was like, all right, I can hang with some of these guys on some of these events, but clearly my weaknesses are really weaknesses. So I really hammered down even more and just trained the shit out of those, to try to make sure that those didn't at least cost me massive points, right? Even if I wasn't going to win, I just wanted to make sure it didn't cost me massive points. And then the following, so that would have been 2012, I took second at nationals to Chad Wesley Smith. That was the year. I don't know if you guys remember, he dabbled in strongman for like 18 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had a really good contest. I actually beat him on more events that he beat me on, but he had out deadlifted me by so many points that's what ultimately cost me the win there. And then at that point it was like, all right, I guess maybe I can hang with the top guys in the country at the sport. And then I just said, all right, at that point, I'm only going to do contests that I can turn pro in. And it just happened to be the next one, down in Shreveport, a Platinum Plus, which, if people are newer to the sport, when Platinum Pluses were, at that point, they were smaller than nationals, but heavier generally, right? So they'd kind of make up for the fact that there might be 15 to 20 people in a weight class versus 60 or plus by making the events heavier. So I competed against Alan Colley, and I were going head to head, another guy who turned pro another year or two later. And that's where I turned pro, is in Shreveport in 2013.
I remember that you could coming back. There was banners. Congratulations, Eric. All over
Yeah.
TPS. That was a fun time. So Johnny, you're probably like in the hundreds in terms of competition. Eric, you've done probably over 50 at least.
It's a good question. You know what the funny thing is? I don't even know if I've hit 50. Maybe not.
But
Yeah, I'm on the, like, not that I purposely try to only do one or two. I don't know. Maybe if I really counted it at this point, actually at this point I probably would be at over 50. But yeah.
But of course, since you guys both started about 14, 15 years in the sport, what keeps the fire and motivation to keep competing in these shows, especially at some of these high level shows?
Well, I can't sing. I can't play piano, man. Now you just listen. I swam too far, right? When you swim too far, you can't swim back. You just got to swim to the other end. So it's something. It's more than just the sport itself. It's you guys too. You know what I mean? Like everybody I train with, everybody I've met through. You know, it's hard when you see a strongman like leave the sport, because you know you might never see them again. You know what I mean? And it's really is like a family reunion when we all go to the big shows or we go to these expos and we see each other. Like that really is something that's not talked about mostly in strongman. But competing besides that, it's just you want to see where you're at always. You just want to see what you can do, what you're losing, what you're getting better at. It's the only real way to test yourself. Never mind the other competitors or whatever. You want to still be able to do what you do and be the best at it.
Excellent. Anything you want to add, Eric?
Yeah, I think for me, like I said before, I'm just gonna pair it like I got into it to have fun. I'm still having fun with it, and the day it's not fun for me, the day that I don't want to put in the work necessary to compete at that level, I'll stop. I'll move on to something else. But I haven't found that point yet, right? It's a grind in the sense of, yeah, things are challenging and training sessions are challenging, and there's still butterflies and like, and not anxiety, but like doubt with like going into a contest. But it's never to a point where I never want to walk away from it. And I don't know. If I can slow my rate of decay, if you will, right? Like that's kind of my goal, right? Like we're all, once you're on the other side of 40, right? Like you generally aren't getting a lot stronger, right? So if I can just hold on to that as long as I possibly can, that's what I will do that until the day I can't.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's segue into that. A lot of of course, kind of fan questions and even my questions are kind of key points and factors of staying healthy and having longevity in the sport. So any tips of the trade, anything you guys want to share with the listeners in terms of how to stay in the sport for a while?
Well, I feel like it's a lot of the prehab you do. You got to pay attention to your body. You got to know your body, and you got to do all the extra things you don't want to do. That's the big deal. I think do the things you don't want to do. The stretching, the prehab, like I said, like cryotherapy. You do the Normatec compression. Do so many things. The supplements that help your joints. You just really got to try to get your body, as loose and as healthy as possible. You know what I mean? And keep it that way. And just the recovery.
I like it. Anything you want to add, Mr. Eric?
Yeah, I would say, all of those things, and just for me, a lot of my training the last few years has shifted into how can I become a better athlete in terms of the strength athlete, right? For so long, you push strength, and not that I don't strength train. Of course, I do. I have to in this sport to keep up, but I would say the last handful of years, it's been focusing more on the athlete side of things, which has allowed me to stay looser, to do all those things Johnny was just mentioning, be able to move freely, so that when you are handling those heavy weights, you're not just the tin man, right? It's like you're strong, but you can't move 2 feet, right? You can't do that in this sport, right? Like that doesn't matter. So you have to be able to move and be strong. So for me, it's been focusing on keeping up the athletic side of things and making sure I'm loose, I'm fast, I'm explosive. All of those things has allowed me to, I think, continue to compete at a high level.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. In the beginning, like when we started competing around 2000, late 2000s, you had to be an athlete. You couldn't just be strong. And as the years go on, you could see it throughout all the organizations. They're pushing that limit of heavy, and they're losing that athlete. And it almost like Eric goes back to saying, like, when it's not fun anymore. And sometimes, especially like about 5 years ago, it started not to be fun. You started going every weekend, you start training with your crew, and it was like max deadlift, max log, max this, max this, max this, max this. And it's not fun anymore. That's why I jumped into this Olympia contest, because the events were just fun. Power stairs, sandbag over shoulder, the medley, the death medley, Viking, like it was a fun show. And it made me have fun again training those events, because before that, what were the events? It was just like straight yoke, straight farmers, just log every day, log, get a little bit heavier, not even reps anymore. It's just max log, and strongman is supposed, when someone asked me about strongman in the beginning, it was really the true test, right? You had to have the conditioning, the endurance, the explosiveness, the strength, everything. And you used to tell people, like, that guy can be stronger than me, so I have to be faster than him. He can be faster than me, but I have to have more conditioning than him. He can have more conditioning, but I got to be stronger. You couldn't beat me on every angle. I had to be able to somehow beat you to stay in contention. And we lost a little bit of that, and hopefully they're bringing it back in. And by bringing that athlete aspect into the sport, it really brings the crowds in. You know what I mean? Like when you have these medleys or these keg tosses or even like car deadlifts over regular, like the fans just love that. Pulling trucks, love it. You know what I mean? As a promoter, as an athlete, some of these events, you know, you tend to be like, oh, it's too much or it's not really as good as this or that. But for the crowd, that's what you have to think of first, I believe, because we want people to watch the sport. We want to be known. We want to get the word out that strongman is about an athlete. Because how many times have you said to your a professional strongman and they're like, oh, how much you bench? Or, oh, is that the guy that cuts down trees? Like they don't even know what they're talking about. You have to, and then they say, oh, the cement balls, not stones. So it just needs to be watched more by regular people, and that regular people will be our crowd.
Love it. One thing I just want to mention in terms of course, kind of staying healthy and longevity. When Martinez came on the podcast, he mentioned you had to do pretty much something for rehab or something for recovery every day. Now, do you guys, if you want to be a decent level competitor, do you guys believe in that?
I agree with that.
Yeah, it might be as simple as going for a walk and doing a couple of breathing drills, right? Like it may be a 20 to 30 minute walk and then spend 5 to 10 minutes doing some breathing drills, maybe a stretch or two, kind of some reset with my rib cage or pelvis, and that might be it. But yeah, honestly, I don't go a single day without doing at least something like that.
And it's tough. It's one of the hardest things, right? Like we, as especially on the East Coast where we live, I think it's a lot busier than most places, and we don't have enough time to do, you know, most of the things we want to do. So that's like on the back burner. Like, oh, I feel good today. Why should I do some prehab stuff? But you do need to do it. Like I have a whole setup of my gym. I have the Normatec. I have cryotherapy. I got all this stuff, and I'll go days without using it sometimes. Like, but I could watch a damn Netflix movie. I can put my neoprenes on, or I can put my compression on while I wash an ice pack, but I don't. And that's what you have to get through. You have to do at least one thing. Like Eric said, go for a walk, stretch. If you can, compression therapy, if you can, cryotherapy. But there's so much that you can do. You know, it only take 10 minutes if you want, or up to an hour, but you have to be able to just get a mindset, just like it was when you started working out. No matter what, you had to get to the gym, no matter what, even if it was just cardio, you have to get used to that schedule, and then it becomes, you know, very easy.
Excellent. A lot of great tidbits there. So kind of moving on to another section. But fun fact, I've never competed overseas without Johnny. Johnny's always been my overseas Sherpa. But this is a two-parter. What is it about overseas shows that make it so special, fun, and exciting? And how can we encourage more top American athletes in all weight classes to compete overseas? So who's oh, Johnny, go ahead.
I feel like until you compete overseas, you really don't know why it's such a big deal. But once you get there and you see the way you're treated, you're treated like a professional athlete. Like strength sports in most countries, most other countries, basically treat us like we're NFL players or baseball players here. Like they pick you up at the airport, they taxi you, everything's paid for. But the real big difference is that crowd. That crowd. When you're competing overseas, you have hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that come out to see you, and it's really a big change, and it doesn't get better than competing overseas. Like even after the competition and even during the competition, people are asking you for pictures and autographs. Sometimes it's hours and hours after the competitions that you can't go, that they love you so much, that they're so inspired and impressed by you that they need to get that picture. They need, and it really like shows you that all this hard work isn't just for nothing. You know, people do appreciate it. People will come to see, and people will applaud you. And unless you go overseas and see that love and that support, you know, you'll never know. But if you're lucky enough to go and compete overseas, it's life-changing.
How many shows have you done overseas, Johnny?
I've done 33.
It's a lot of trips. Hopefully I can catch up one day. How about you, Eric? What were your thoughts about overseas contests?
Yeah, I'll mimic all of that. It just they care about it more, right? Like it's just built in, like Johnny said, it's built into the culture a lot of times. So the support there is from the fans. And like Johnny said, I mean, I did a contest. My first international one was in Uzbekistan, and afterward, you would have thought I was Thor or Eddie or Brian, like Zadruna, like like an hour plus of straight pictures, right? Like I was like, what? It was crazy. They care so much about it. The crowds are there, they're into it. Beyond that, the promoters, I think coming up, but going back to the point of like not just turning it into basically powerlifting with 5 different events, right? Like promoters overseas, at least from my experience, have really bought into like the spectacle of let's do events that look really awesome for the crowd, right? Again, going back to that crowd thing, right? Like picking events that are fun visually, right? It's something unique and that tests you differently. The first contest I did in SCL in Holland, I had it was 6 events, and when I had landed there, 3 of the 6 events were completely different. They had changed them, like not log max to log reps. It was logged to like I don't even know what it was, and it was something else. And I was like, all right, let's just roll with it, right? And like there was a contest where we had to take like rolled up carpets and like run rolled up carpets, right? Like down and put it in this oblong sled. Had to figure out like how are we going to pick up this carpet, right? It's different than a sandbag, right? It's significantly longer, it's wider, like and that's what I love about the sport is kind of that uniqueness of figuring out how to lift things. And I think at least in my experience with some of those overseas contests, they really do buy into like it doesn't have to be this standardized thing.
Excellent.
And I think for
Subject to change. Subject to change.
Exactly. Always. Yeah. I think sometimes people will get frustrated if people kind of come from that background of like needing to know every single detail. Well, how many centimeters long is that sandbag? Right? Like I've never really been like that. So I think that's what's allowed me to adapt and do pretty well at this sport for a long time. Right. Like on paper statically, like I'm not that strong for a heavyweight pro, but I've been able to hang with a lot of guys over the years because of that adaptability.
Yeah,
Now,
I feel like it's an American European thing too. Just like in America, we'll talk about any sport. It's all about stats, and that's how like a lot of the American strongmen look at things. Like, oh, we need exact dimensions, exact distance. But Europeans, they're more of like a soccer, like, oh, anything can happen. It's a beautiful day. Who cares? So when it's subject to change, and like you said, you get off the plane and they could be a total different event. Not one peep out of your pants are like, okay, what are they? And they're ready to go. So in America, it's almost like people have a heart attack. Like they won't even go. One different event. So
it's true.
I think that's.
But Eric, I was gonna say that Uzbekistan show, is that the 4 press show that you had? You have 4 different press events.
It wasn't quite 4. It was
like out of 5 events, it was 4 out of 5 events were present.
Yeah, it was max log, Viking press, giant dumbbell medley, and then the first time I'd ever seen the iron cross or mooring bit, that was that one, and then a yoke. So those are the 5 events. I lost to Vitas Blakaitis in that event because again he's a press monster, right? So like you get 3 of 5 events and they're all pressing. He's gonna beat a lot.
You mean Sean DeMarinis?
Distant uncle.
We never knew, but yeah, I think they're at least cousins.
Definitely maybe separated at birth.
So going on the fan questions. So we'll run through these. Favorite contest to date?
That's a tough one.
You guys have a favorite one?
I've done 161 shows, so I have all-timers sometimes when it comes to the first 100. So, but my favorite to date was probably the show. Sorry, Nick, but with Eric in the Ukraine, just because
because he was a great teammate. That's why.
Listen, it was in the country that I'm from. You know what I mean? Like we had the big arena they just built for the Euro Cup, and the fans were just insane. Like it was just like a huge spectacle, and just like everybody there and everybody together, and having Eric as my teammate, not just being solo. Like it was a really great experience. Same thing like when I was your teammate in Hungary. It made it better. It just made it better that we were together going for one goal. Then going there, like all the contests, like the one we did in Ireland, or the ones me, Sean, Mike went to China, like we're there together and it's great, but we're competing against each other, which, is great to compete against each other because we have the respect. But when you're competing together, it just changes it a little bit.
Lit. How about you, Eric? Favorite contest?
It's really hard. I like Johnny. I can't narrow it down to one. I think the first one that comes to mind was that Strongman Champions League in Holland, the one I had won, because it was a little bit unexpected, right? Like, I have confidence in myself and my ability to do stuff, but the fact that I had beat those guys, and like that was a good lineup, right? Like JF Caron and Gregor Szymanski, like there was some really good athletes, and Alex Moonin, and there was some really good Marius Lawless, and it's a good lineup. And the fact that I had won that, and that was my first experience with not my first experience internationally, but just with that crowd being just amazing right there, and you're getting interviewed after each thing, and it's being broadcast afterward. That was a lot of fun. The Ultimate Strongman contest I did in England later that year, that was unreal, because that's definitely the biggest crowd I've ever been a part of. I mean, it was at least 6,000 people there, I would guess. Right?
You were going head to head with Big Z at that time, right?
I went head to head with Big Z on a couple of events, the tire flip, the axle overhead. It was also that lineup was just, I had to pinch myself being a part of that lineup. Like, when I look back at that, I'm like, holy crap, what was I doing there? Right? Like, that was awesome. But so like the just being a part of that lineup. And then honestly, like the most recent one I'd done, not the Olympia, but in Norway this past summer, because that was just, it had a completely different feel in the sense that there weren't thousands of people there, but it almost felt like if you had rewound Strongman 500 years, they would have been doing the same things in that same spot, right? Like using natural wood logs, like Kiki and Eagle, and what they had done out there at that venue, and you're up like in this mountain range with a lake in the background. It was just an amazing experience. Yeah, like that was unreal from a different perspective.
Excellent. Next question. When preparing, actually, before I get into that one, what's the biggest change in the sport you've noticed since you started the sport? So any big changes, good or bad? So things have you noticed?
Well, I think there's obviously a lot of changes. Like I was talking about before, they moved that goalpost a lot, with the difference in events and maxes and things like that, heavier weights. But what I notice more is it's not as friendly as it used to be. It used to be all inclusive, and now people have like their sections. You know what I mean? And if you go to one section, someone doesn't like you, or this one doesn't like you. And there's a lot of talk. And it could have been like that always, but now with social media, you really see it. Like, people push their agenda a lot, and it's really disturbing that we can't just be, friends or athletes. There has to be some kind of drama all the time.
That's very fair. Yeah. And especially when I think social media really kind of started in 2012, 2013. So I think that when Instagram started, and that was a huge component for Strong, even though of course Facebook was big when it started in 2006. How about yourself, Eric? Big changes, good or bad?
There's that. Although, and I will say, I definitely noticed that too, Johnny. I will say though, on some level, like, at least from my own personal experience, the heavyweight men and the masters men, like, there is still a lot of that camaraderie, and especially overseas too. Like, that last contest I did in Norway, there was a lot of really good camaraderie. Like, even though, like, I had won that one, like, the guys were there, like, cheering me on, wanted me to get this, and vice versa, right? Like, when we're done with something, like, you're actually actively cheering somebody to do well versus like hoping they blow it, right? I do think that's there. I do agree though, it's probably not there as much as it used to be, where it truly just felt like everybody in the sport, like, it was rare if you're like, well, that guy's kind of a dick. Well, now you're like, well, all of those people are dicks, right? Like, it's unfortunate. I hate saying that, but like that has definitely changed. I would say the other thing that's changed is the emphasis on max, everything max, right? How can we push the max versus like, can we come up with some different events that challenge people in a unique way, right? I'd like to see some of that, and that'll happen. But I think sometimes people kind of push back on that a little bit. But I hope not too much. I hope that people will continue, promoters and other people will continue to promote, to push kind of how can we challenge people in a different way for strength, because I think that's the roots of strongman, right? Like that's truly what it is.
Excellent. Of course, thank you for that. So when prepping for a max lift, I know we just talked about maxes. How many sets or reps in weight jumps would you guys do? You could give like a general answer or maybe implement specific item if you guys have any tidbits.
What did you say? Training for max?
You're training for a max lift, so we're just talking about how much we love maxes.
Yeah. I like to go the basics. I like to warm up with 5 reps, then bring it down to 3 reps, and then start hitting singles after that. After you're all loosened up, and just hit the accessories.
Excellent, Eric. Maybe that for like a max stone.
It's going to be event specific for sure, right? I'm not going to do nearly as many warm up sets on a max farmers, for example, as I will for a max deadlift or a log. I'll generally hit 3 sets in that lower intensity range, maybe that 5 rep range, 3 to 5 rep range, kind of working up. Then from there, another 3 to 5 sets where I'm working from like a triple down to singles, and then from there, depending on if I'm doing, like, say for example, a log or a deadlift, working up to that. So I'm generally not doing more than, I would say, like 6 to 8 sets leading up to that point, right? I don't think you need 15 sets leading up to that point, but I certainly wouldn't do a max deadlift or a max log after only doing 3 sets or 4 sets, right? I don't know that that's unless depending on how heavy the implement is versus what your actual max is at. But for example, like farmers, stuff like that. Go back to farmers, for example. I'm not doing, if I'm going to do a max farmers 50-foot run, I'm not doing 6 warm-up sets of 50 feet beforehand, right? I may do 3 to 4, and they're probably going to be in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 feet, right? Getting used to that pick and walk the first couple of steps in my warm-ups, and then I'm going to save my grip, just save everything in general for that big run when I know, all right, I've got to hit, I want to try to hit 460 today per hand, for example.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's definitely event specific. So whatever that weakest link in that event is, the weaker that weakest link is, the less warm-ups and the less sets you're going to go into it. Like the farmers, because of that grip, you know what I mean? So there's a few things you could do, like you can do straps in the beginning, things like that. But you have to recognize where that weakest link is. Like everything can be fine, but that grip is the first thing to go. So you have to save that with either doing less runs or putting straps on, things like that. Same thing with deadlifts and logs. You got to figure out where that weakest link is, conditioning, anything.
I like it. So moving on. So there's a question for Johnny. Johnny, do you still munch on Krispy Kremes during training, and why?
Krispy Kremes is a sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, I do. We love our Krispy Kremes at the Strong Box just because they're very easy to eat. They're light, so they're easy on digestion, and they have just enough sugar, about 15 to 20 grams of sugar in each donut. So it's very easy to eat. It doesn't mess your digestion up. It doesn't mess anything up. It's really quick energy to keep the glucose stable while you train.
Excellent. These next questions are questions from Mr. Mike O'Connor. What achievement are you most proud of?
My achievement is winning 105 Masters Worlds in the Ukraine. It was surreal. Like they played the national anthem, in Ukraine. So it's my roots are from Ukraine, but I'm an American citizen, and them just playing that national anthem and everyone in Ukraine respecting it and singing it if they can with me. I was teary. I was teary-eyed.
No, that's awesome. How about yourself, Mr. Eric?
We lost him.
I don't have anything that profound. I tell you that much. That profound. If it really like comes down to it, the fact that I've been able to do this as long as I have and been able to do it as a natural athlete and at a high level, like I'm pretty fucking proud of that. I'll say that. I don't really talk about that a lot. I don't really whatever. I don't give a shit what people do and not do. I've never cared whether people do something or not. Like, it's just a choice I've made for myself. And I am pretty proud of that. The fact that I've been able to compete for as long as I have at a high level without doing it.
Great,
which is extraordinary because you're probably very few and in between.
Absolutely. And then following up from that question, anything you still want to accomplish, any overreaching goals you want to achieve before your career is over?
I just, like Eric said, like, as long as it's fun, as long as I can still do it, I just want to go out there and do it, have some fun. And, I love a crowd. I love the friendships that we've made throughout. And I just want to keep continuing doing exactly what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Excellent.
Yeah. I would say that. And then I do actually have one specific goal.
I know it.
I did get a stone made. I got a stone made that's I think it's settled around like 545 pounds, and I want to load that this summer. That's my goal. I've done a 500-pound stone for 2 reps. I definitely want to hit this before I can't. So
let's pick a day. I'm there.
Yeah, make a weekend out of it.
Yeah.
So this is for one of the listeners. So let's see if we can give this listener a little help here. One of the listeners asked, I lost some strength due to an injury, had to take a break and start training again. How long does it take to get all my strength back?
How long has they not worked out? Like, how long were they injured? When did they get injured, and how long did they take off?
That's all the kind of that's all the kind of question.
Well, like, if whatever it was, I would say at least half the time that you were out. So let's say you were 6 months you were out. I would try to program it so in 3 months you really start getting back to that upper echelon of where you were.
Anything you want to add, Eric?
No, I would say the other caveat I would ask is, like, how long were you training before that point, right? If you were training for 2 years, got hurt, and were off for 6 months, versus if you've been training for 15 years and you got hurt for a month, those are two very different scenarios, right? Because it's going to come back a lot quicker for that second person. But to that point, like, I would say beyond timetables, I would say look at like movement quality first, right? The weight will absolutely come back, right? Like, but you guys have been injured, like, the weight will come back. But if you push it too early, too quickly, you're gonna kick the can down the road in terms of being fully recovered, versus just being patient and saying, all right, I don't care if I do more than 200 pounds on this today or 100 pounds on this today. I just got to get that movement quality back.
Excellent. And then that's pretty much most of the kind of the fan questions. Of course, I appreciate the last one. I think that'll be some helpful points for the listeners. But what's on the horizon for 2023?
My horizon, we'll see. So right now, taking probably 2 to 3 months off. Just getting everything, trying to get all the injuries down, and get your everything checked out, make sure everything is good and healthy. All the checks and balances I can do, and then probably looking to restart. I do it every year. I usually take the first 3 months of the year off and just try to get healthy and make sure give enough time for injuries to subside. So probably
hibernate in the winter.
Yeah, that's what Ukrainians do. And then probably April, May, whatever's around there. Hopefully some international shows come up this year, because of the pandemic. We haven't really traveled that much compared to what we used to do. So hopefully we'll see something interesting go on.
I bet that Paris show will probably happen again.
It was a great place to have a show, but they did have some problems. Like, it was on, then it was off, then it was on, then it was off. So if I guess now that they have the hookup with that expo, maybe it'll be a yearly thing, but he'll probably like change. It'll be Masters 1 year, and maybe it'll be just a regular 105 this year. Who knows, but we're up for anything.
Excellent. Eric, anything on the horizon for 2023?
Yeah, actually, was it earlier this week or late last week? I was invited back to Norway to do the World's Strongest Viking in like 6 weeks. So that's the outdoor. You guys saw the like blizzard or not, it's happening. So I'm actually really excited for that one. That one I've wanted to do for a long time. So I'm going there in end of February.
So that'll be at Fee4. Would that be at Fee4 again?
I'll be back at Fee4. Yeah.
All right. So this time you're going in the winter. So what to expect? What, a couple hours of sunlight and of course a lot of snow.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think you're looking at about 2 hours of sunlight and a lot of snow and cold. So
what give us us and the listeners a little what's the training gonna look like? You gonna do events outside?
I'm still trying to formulate a little bit of a plan with that. I am going to definitely do some stuff outside to be uncomfortable and kind of get used to that. I'm not going to do everything outside, right? But I'm going to pull some stuff outside that I can that makes sense to that. So I'll know how to adapt and like, all right, how, like, what gear do I wear? Like, how much do I wear? When do I take my gloves off, or when do I take my jacket off right before? How do I time that up? And be smart about those kind of things, because I don't want to be constricted, but at the same time, I don't want to be freezing either when you're ready to perform. So,
what would Brett Favre do in the snow? He would just go out there and win, right?
I don't know if I want to emulate everything Brett Favre has done. I loved him as a kid, as a football player, but let's just say post playing career, I don't know if I want to emulate everything he's done.
True. But that's pretty exciting. Do you know the events?
Yeah, so it's Viking press, that's Friday night, and then everything else is Saturday. It's a boat pull, power stairs, Hercules hold, Atlas stones, and I'm forgetting one. The Wheel of Pain, their version of the Wheel of Pain.
Interesting. So I would say like the Atlas stone might be an interesting one to kind of figure out what tacky to use. Maybe using a really light tacky, maybe like more than competition grade if you're using like the spider tacky. Yeah,
I actually think Dave Osland, the elite tacky, makes a cold weather blend. And I've used in the past, actually at TPS when I used to work and train there out in the shed when you do those winter sessions, when it would get to be, now this will be colder than that, but we train it when it was like 30-40 degrees out there, and that tacky did actually hold up pretty well, that cold weather blend. It's a lot more pliable. You wouldn't want it in the summer because it would just turn to snot, but in the winter it actually holds up pretty well.
Interesting. Fun fact about Dave Osland, Colin Bryce said he was the smelliest strongman he ever came across. Probably because he said mainly because of his blue Ray-Bans, but I feel like everybody's blue Ray-Ban smell. So, but maybe his stunk a little more.
Did Colin never meet Sean?
Sean, he would have met him at the 2016 Indiana show. When we were out there doing the qualifier so we can get to Belfast.
Colin must have had a cold that day.
Yeah. But that's most of my questions for today, boys. Of course, thank you for coming on. I'm going to post your guys' social media on below so that they can follow your journey and learn more about you. But I really appreciate coming on. You guys have been a great influence on me. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you guys. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I want to say, of course, a merry early Ukrainian Christmas to Johnny Wasiczko.
Tomorrow. Thank you.
Because it's Christmas Eve today, right?
Yeah. Three Kings Day.
Holy moly. That's, in Italy, we celebrated the old Befana, which was kind of like almost like a cleaning lady that cleaned up after Jesus. But she followed the three wise men, but her day was June 6th. So today.
That's why I don't like too many Italian.
But on that note, guys, thank you for coming on, and for the listeners, thank you for subscribing and listening, and don't forget to like, share, and tell all your friends. But until next time, stay strong.